welcome. Today I've got Georgia Panagopoulou. And Georgia is located in Athens, Greece. So this is an international guest. And what I really like about her is that Georgia, who has her own Instagram account at wine.gini, Gini, is an engineer by trade who is a storyteller who helps brands connect through the art of storytelling online with younger consumers. She's highly successful. Most importantly, she has exposure to more than a dozen different countries where she's been doing her work for the last 10 years. So thanks again for joining us. And now, Georgia Panagopoulou. So, hi, Georgia. Thank you so much for joining me. You are on the other side of the world, so we're missing each other by several hours. Talk to me a little bit about where you live and a little bit about the things you work on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, John. I'm so happy that we finally made it. So I am based in Athens, in Greece. And what I basically do for the past 10 years is that I'm a content creator, awarded actually, wine storyteller, and I'm also a digital marketing strategist for the wine industry.
And so, what I do want to talk to you about before we get into it is that you, like many people in wine that we've talked to, come from a different path. Like this is quite different. So, talk to me a little bit about your education, and then what was it that got us to the wine part?
Yes, of course. I believe that our choices are actually like small dots that are connected that get you to the final destination. So, in my case, my background is a bit diverse. I started from chemical engineering. I have a Master's of Science in the National Technical University of Athens. So, finishing my studies, I had the bad luck of facing the huge financial crisis in Greece that lasted for 10 years. You might have heard about it. So, I was one of those people that I graduated right at that time. So, as you realize, my studies were very technical, but there was a huge challenge to find a job in the industry back then. So I decided to start working for a different area, more in the sales, more in the marketing side, but in technical kind of industries. And at the same time, because I wasn't very happy, also the salaries back then were really bad. I thought, okay, I had this quarter life crisis, and I thought this is not for me. I want to do something that I love because maybe I won't make more money, but at least I'm going to be maybe a bit more happy. So back then, I decided to quit a safe corporate job, and out of intuition, in a way, I had this romantic thought in my mind that I would love to do something in the wine industry. I wasn't a wine lover back then. I wasn't going to taste things. I had no clue about wine. I just had this romantic view about wine. So I quit my life in Athens. I moved to Santorini and I started working there in the hospitality. I followed the WSET level 1, level 2. I finished the season there and I fell in love with wine back then. But I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. I had this geek background, as I mentioned, as a chemical engineer. So I thought, okay, I want to learn more about wine and I want to find my path in the wine industry. So I applied for a master's degree in wine management that it had this technical but also experiential kind of view because for 1 year and a half I traveled around the world learning about wine from professionals. So it was a very specific kind of master's degree. We were traveling for a year in 30 countries. in regions that were commercial, in regions that were production based. So, in a way, we gained a full overview of the wine industry. And this is how I started Wine Gini, because I wanted to communicate this experience.
So I want to back into two questions because one I think is interesting just because we've been talking a lot about it. What was your family's relationship with wine? In other words, was wine a normal drink for you? And then as a follow up on this wine in family, did they think you had lost your mind when you chose to walk away from your engineering path and walk into this?
Totally. So I come from a very typical and conservative family. My father is a doctor, my mother is a teacher, and the traditional kind of approach in Greece is for young people to enter in the university, do a master's, do a PhD. So it's very typical in Greece for young people to become scientists. So when I decided back then to quit my job, and also in the middle of financial crisis, my family was super worried and upset. Like, Georgia, what are you doing? This is not what you have studied, what you are going to do. It's, the boomer mindset of the safety. But my generation has been brought up in an era that safety is not a word that we know, and this is good and bad at the same time.
Yeah, and so obviously, one of the things that drew me to you is the way that you tell stories. And so I want to zoom in a little bit on the moment that you realized your special ability to do that, especially in an area like wine where we are typically very bad at doing that. So what was the experience where you're like, you're you're talking to consumers the wrong way? Is there something that happened or a story about that?
You mean when I started my blog and it was
Y-
evolving,
Yeah,
or
like what was it when you were starting your blog, when you're like realizing that you have this special ability to talk and communicate in a way that consumers like, right? And that's obviously led to your success. What if anything was there a moment where you're like, "Oh goodness, the wine industry is bad at this."
yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm right now practically 10 years in the digital world, in the wine industry. So when I started, that it was during my master's degree that I told you that we were traveling around the world, I decided to create, in a way, a page to communicate my new professional identity. So I had no dream of becoming an influencer, a content creator at all. So when I started posting about wine, about the experiences I had, about the wines I was trying, I realized that people started to connect with me. They started following me. And in the first month, I had 2,000 followers. I had no clue about social media. So for me, that was something big. And, and I thought, okay, something is happening here. So I started analyzing the other accounts that had presence back then, but we're talking about baby steps in the social media in the wine industry 10 years ago. And I realized that all the accounts that were related to wine, they were just pictures of bottles, and nothing else. So I realized that in my case, I was connecting with the audience with my face, with my personal story of me jumping in a new profession, of me trying to learn wine. So I started realizing that people were following my hero's journey in a way, a personal story. And for me, this is wine is one of the best products in the world because it combines so many things and you can tell so many stories connected with wine, nature, flavors, people, history. It's a magical world.
And so as you are going through this experience and you are starting to get 10 years ago, a little bit of traction. Talk to me a little bit about your experience then and then now as you talk to wineries and your other clients about how it is that you work. So if you could kind of give me your original pitch and then refine it to today, like how you describe your work so that people understand the evolution, not just of you, but also a little bit of the industry and social media too.
Yeah, it was quite challenging, honestly, and it still is. It's an industry that is moving very, very slowly in terms of marketing. So things have changed quite a bit because the younger generations, I mean, it's an industry that it's mostly family owned. So the younger generations, the kids are entering now more leadership roles, but still the parents are taking the decisions. So anyway, back then I was saying that I'm a wine communicator, I'm a wine educator. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. So my pitch wasn't very clear. As the years were passing by, I realized that many wineries were asking me, do you also handle social media accounts? Do you know how to post? Things like that. So I thought, okay, this is an opportunity for me because back then I was working mainly as an influencer. The term content creator wasn't there yet. So I was basically traveling all around the world, visiting wineries. It was quite hectic. I was in a burnout. So I thought, okay, Georgia, maybe this is a great opportunity for you. So I also studied digital marketing and I started realizing that the traditional marketing has many different um, other, let's say, sectors. So it's the marketing, the physical one, and also the digital one. So I started realizing that I can also pitch my services as a digital marketeer, offering services in terms of strategies, advertising, content creation for wineries. And as the time was moving, I realized that I am a content creator, basically, and also a digital marketeer. So right now, when someone asks me what I do, this is what I say.
Yeah, it's interesting because you rightfully talk a lot about making wine social, about storytelling, and much of the idea of this podcast is about what the wine industry gets wrong when communicating with young people. And so let's talk for a minute about what you see. What works to connect younger people to wine and what just in your experience just is something the wine industry gets wrong and it gets wrong enough that you shake your head no every day at it.
Yes, so what I see is that the wine industry still treats wine like a product that someone needs to be educated in order to try it, or they approach wine in a more elitistic way. It's something that we always have a dispute, all the people in the industry, like open up the industry, welcome the younger people, try to communicate in a more friendly way. And although we all agree, I see it in practice when, for example, I collaborate with a winery, that they give me specific guidelines. So if I propose something that it's more raw, more real, in order for people to connect through more humor, more lifestyle approach, or something that it's more spontaneous, people don't like it. I mean, not the consumers, but the business people.
Right.
So in the end of the day, I mean, we are doing all this effort to convince them that if you want to communicate to the Gen Z, sorry, to the millennials, to the yes, to the Gen Z, you need to have no filters in a way. They are still not able to do that. So they think that we still have to communicate wine in a more stylish way, more glamorous way, and this is not working anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously fashion has changed a lot as well. And so if you grew up my generation and everything was the magazine version, and now what we see work is authenticity, right? And I think that's what you mean by no filters, or at least reducing the filters. It's really letting people in to see what it is that you're doing. Is that a fair statement to call it authenticity?
Exactly. And as you said, wine is about stories. And when I say stories, this doesn't mean that you have to talk about your wine. So maybe, as you said, you might invite a wine lover in the winery, let's say a model, because you spoke about industry,
Yeah.
and you can have a conversation around a glass of wine. Me, as the owner, with a visitor who is from from the fashion industry. So it's really about communicating wine, but having wine as the medium that starts a story. Because imagine yourself when you're with your friends, you open a glass of wine and you start talking and maybe discussing things that under a normal situation with, I don't know, a cup of coffee, you wouldn't talk about. This is why I say, start talking, um, sharing stories, not about wine, but everything around it in a way.
Yeah, one of the things that, and I do want to double back on this issue of the of younger people. One of the things I really found fascinating about your work is you've worked across 10 more than 10 countries, right? So how many countries have you worked in?
I have visited more than 45
Yep.
and I have partnered with more than 25, I think. So
Pretty global perspective. And obviously you're from Greece, which has a different culture about wine. Just talk to us a little bit about Greek culture, mostly because I've had my good share of British and French people, and I think that we're capturing maybe we're miscapturing really what wine's about. So talk about Greece and then compare it a little bit to all these other countries that you've also worked in.
yes. So Greece, first of all, is a super, super small country, but it's fascinating in terms of the wine and, of course, other aspects. So, first of all, we cannot be mainstream. So we cannot have our wines all around the world. We need to position ourselves in a more premium kind of category and very niche one. So first of all, we are very small. Second, the industry has changed so much since the 80s that people started to invest in indigenous varieties and they also studied winemaking. So for the last 20, 30 years, there has been so many changes in terms of the quality, in terms of the positioning, and also in terms of the people who are involved in the industry, who are very educated, really well traveled, and they have taken the Greek wine in a super high, I think, and premium positioning. Great wines, great wine tourism that it's still evolving. We produce wine all around Greece nowadays, and you can visit most of the wineries right now. So there is a great potential.
And
Also,
uh,
the gastronomy is evolving a lot. Athens is becoming a top destination right now. So we have so many different restaurants, venues, etc. So we also import wines from around the world, but we basically the Greeks love to drink Greek wine, and also the visitors are starting to realize that Greek wine is amazing. So
and so obviously I see that the Greek wine is really growing. So let's compare that to places where they've seen substantial slippage. I mean, obviously France is the best example of this. But if you could compare Greece and maybe some of the other up and coming regions to those that are struggling, what do you see to be the major differences as far as the wine culture? What is happening from your perspective?
mm, I don't know if it's we can compare. Greece, with France, for example, because as I mentioned, we are such a small country.
Right.
But I see that the younger generations, they're really interested to learn more about wine. So I have seen this evolution. We have many wine bars opening in different areas around Greece. We have people who want to become sommeliers, who want to become educators. So I see that there is this great interest right now around wine and gastronomy in general, and also experiences around wine and food, which is super optimistic in my opinion. Now, what I see in the traditional kind of wine regions, because Greece is not a traditional wine region, in terms of the years that we make amazing wine, I see that the younger people sometimes they have this let's say approach that wine is something boring because my grandparents and my grandfathers and my whatever, they used to drink wine, so now I want to drink something different. And at the same time, we see this shift, especially in the US, with the healthy lifestyle. So this is also very challenging because US is the biggest consumer in terms of wine, and it makes things challenging along with the taxes, of course. So yeah.
Do you find that healthy lifestyle thing to be more centered on the US, or is that just a generational difference from what you see?
Of course it's generational, but
Yeah.
because US drives the trends, drives the everything on social media, we all copy what is coming from the US. It has become huge all around the world.
And so what are some things that help you as a storyteller kind of help make it relatable to people who want to stay healthy, right? And still enjoy time with friends and the things that wine provides them. What sort of things do you think about as a storyteller that lets you basically reach that audience?
The way that I approach wine has never been about drink more and always, pushing different wine labels. Try this, try that. I'm trying to be very selective in the things that I recommend. And I always communicate wine through experiences. This can be an event that I go and connect with other people. It can be a food and wine experience. So wine is the glue to everything. Or it can be, let's say, a visit to a winery. So for me, it's really about creating stories around wine, not pushing the overconsumption. And also people can see that also from my lifestyle. I mean, I'm a person that I like to, I'm active, I go around. So it's not about drinking more, it's about having a nice lifestyle. And wine can be part of a healthy uh, and in moderation consumption lifestyle, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because we do have this kind of two-tier uh, social media presence in the wine industry, right? One is it's a party drink and drink a lot and look at me. And the other is maybe a little bit of touch of elegance in your life, just a little luxury that you can have.
Yeah.
Um, and I have found it really interesting that both of those sets of people seem to have some amount of large following online. But maybe what you are doing is a little bit more accessible, uh, certainly more accessible to your clients, right? And so I'm sure wineries kind of talk about this a lot. At the same time, there's a big demand for them to have more consumption because that's their business.
Yes,
Um,
yes, of course. We always always they want people to drink more, of course.
So I want to shift this a little bit, mostly because um, m- I see a lot of your work and with producers and for yourself. And so this is the part of the show where I just get free consulting because I'm a wine bar owner. But what I'm really looking for is for on the ground okay, for the wine shops, for the wine bars, for the restaurants with wine programs. What sort of advice do you have for them about talking to young people about how it is that they should rethink a little bit the old ways of doing things?
Yeah. So people don't care anymore about the tastings, this content around wine, that it's about, you guys, I tried this wine and it tastes like cherries and strawberries. Nobody cares. So my advice to the people is to connect through human interaction. People connect with people. So if you are a business owner, if you are a restaurant, show what is happening around the restaurant, how you make the decisions around wine, around food and wine. So show the backstage. As I mentioned, wine for me is the glue around everything. So the conversations between the argument between the chef and the sommelier. So a really bad pairing that happened. Real things. In a way, when you have a business, for me, the best advice is to document it.
And so when you say document it, I have something very specific in mind, but why don't you explain what document it means to you when you just said that? The best thing for business is to document
Um,
it.
yes, so what I mean is basically show the backstage of what is happening, the good, the bad, the ugly, the real things, because when someone engages with this kind of content, they feel that they are like your friends in a way. So they will decide to come to your wine bar because they know you, because they know the sommelier, because they know the vibe of the place. And because they can tell also that you know what you're doing around wine, around food, around everything.
And so I guess that when you use that word, you're going back to that authenticity, right? Like in other words, just show the mess too, because people are attracted a little bit to more than we as business owners think to the authentic problems and other things that happen on a day-to-day basis. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
One of the things that I was kind of reading is you have this framework, the CSV framework for how to approach your projects. Talk a little bit about kind of this framework because I do want to focus a little bit about how you think about things, and then I have a couple follow-up questions. So if you could explain the CSV framework, what it means to you, and how you pitch that to your clients.
Can you please remind me what was that? It was
Yeah, so
consistency,
yeah,
visibility,
consistency, storytelling, and value. So it was this
and values.
idea of these three elements. And so if you could talk, about consistency and storytelling, which are really, really important. And then I want to kind of back our way into value because I think it's a really, really important topic.
Okay. So, yeah, so what you basically say is the wait, okay. So what you basically say is the CVS system. So consistency. Um, wait, I'm stuck. Okay,
Yeah,
CSV.
consistency.
Okay, CSV. Okay, so what you're basically talking about, it's the CSV system. So consistency, storytelling, value.
Yep.
Um, so first of all, consistency. You need to have presence in your accounts. So you need to don't ghost your audience. Pick a specific day, pick a specific time that during the week you can work on your content, and then choose a specific day that you can upload this content. Instead of being overwhelmed about creating all the time, start with small steps. Post once per week, but please do it. So be consistent so that people know that you have presence. Now, in terms of the storytelling, and this is the most tricky part, you need, in my opinion, to really understand who you are. So think of storytelling like a small class of self awareness of your brand. What is your brand? What does it want to say to the world? What is your why, as we all say in the marketing? And this is how you will start building your storytelling. Because when you know who you know what are your do's and what are your don'ts. And finally, in terms of the values, it is connected again with this awareness kind of approach. But we see right now that the most important thing for the modern consumers is to really connect with your values. You don't have to speak to everyone. You don't need all the world, to be your client. You are not Coca-Cola. So think of who do you want to approach. Think of your, let's say, buying persona, which is Georgia, 36 years old, living in Athens. I don't know. Think of this person, think about their values, and try to incorporate them in your strategy.
And so when we talk about those values, what would you say are the generational differences? In other words, somebody who is, you know, that 25-year-old versus somebody who might be the 55-year-old. Where do those diverge, those values?
Oh, I think they're so different. I mean, my generation was brought up in this era, as I mentioned before, that we have no safety whatsoever. So we have really um, we have lived in an era that we have experienced crisis, COVID, wars. In Europe, what is happening right now. So our generation needs to feel seen in a way. The previous generations, they worked hard, they made money, they have more safety, they made the house, they have, the spouse, the dog, the kids. So my generation is completely different. We're basically more self-centered, but I hope in a good way. We care about our freedom, our personal development, our balance, our mental health. So you should approach us in a more individual kind of way. So marketing should be more targeted. The older generations, I think they had a more mass kind of approach in terms of marketing.
Yeah, so I'm going to put you as president of the entire wine industry for a minute because this this role is unfilled apparently. So you are in charge of the entire wine industry. If you just had the power to be president of the wine industry, what would you change? What would you do differently?
Mm, this is so difficult, really,
Yeah.
to answer. You mean in terms of the communication?
Maybe. So the reason I asked that, and I know it's a hard question, right, is because we are all in it. We see things that are frustrating to us all the time, right? We also recognize that it's a very diverse group. In other words, there are people doing great things that we really like. And so I it can be in terms of communication. It can be in terms of anything. But the
Yeah,
idea of the question, right, is you just day to day, like if I could fix this thing,
yeah.
what would it be?
So for me, I mean, I think that if I could change something, for me, it would start from the basis. So it would start from how we approach the environment. I mean, we live in a super turbulent times in terms of that. We are basically destroying the universe. We are destroying the earth. So what I would really try to pursue people is to actually make better choices in terms of how they treat the environment with the pesticides, how they treat the people who work in the field, and basically, yes, how they can protect right now the earth for the future generations. For me, this is the most important thing because you see what is happening, especially in the big regions. I mean, it's a mess.
Yeah. And on a I guess a more optimistic question. Um, what sort of things are you working on that you really are enjoying right now? You know, we all spend so much of our day doing kind of day-to-day things, but do you have something you're working on that's exciting you?
Yes, I do. I do. And you know, especially when you're doing something for so many years, you always want to rebrand and reconnect with yourself and your passion. So, what I was basically doing a lot for the last 2 years is that I'm now also doing a lot of consulting one to one with younger creators or with business owners. And I try to mentor them on how to be better storytellers, how to present themselves. It's something that I really, really love. And I'm also working on a podcast here in Greece, in Greek, actually, with a colleague of mine. She's a wine journalist. It's something that it's under the works, so it's not something that we can announce yet. And also, we are planning some projects with her in general.
Hmm.
So this is what makes me super happy right now.
Well, congratulations on all that. And thanks for doing this, by the way. I really appreciate having you on. You've got the right um, international presence, but your storytelling ability, especially someone who was programmed to be an engineer, has been great to watch. And I definitely encourage people. We have both in the description, and for those of you who are watching this, we have your Instagram handle at wine.gini.